So we are back, and I'm going to be talking about the history of more about cash-in prizes-esque things. Now, some honorable mentions before we go into it, because they've skipped a couple of years every now and then, and it was really hard to kind of make sure that that was there. It was the X Division Championships Option C. They haven't done it in a while, so I didn't think that it would have been appropriate here. And there were just like a couple of other titles that had more of a cash-in, but they're a little more indie, so I didn't think it was quite necessary to really do that. But let's talk about, obviously, the mainstay is Money in the Bank, which was introduced in WrestleMania 21, yeah. Jesus Christ, I feel old. That was like 20 years ago. And out of the... Obviously, it was a briefcase where if you cashed in at any point at any time, you would get an automatic championship match. It's never explicitly said that it was a world championship match. It's any title. This can be cashed in. But obviously, if you are a wrestler in the E, you want to do that. The idea of having it at any time and any place was actually Edge's idea. When he had the original Money in the Bank, he pitched the idea to have it at any time to Vince McMahon. And Vince McMahon, when he grabbed the briefcase, he told Edge, "You better prove me right. You better prove yourself right here." So Edge had a lot riding on him taking that ultimate opportunist persona that he had and really incorporating it with Money in the Bank. And that's kind of how we have it, because the original idea for Money in the Bank was you let them know ahead of time, and then you get the automatic title match at the next pay-per-view. That was the original intent of Money in the Bank. So this was written before Money in the Bank this year. Out of 26 winners before the 2022's event, 22 cash-ins led to title switching hands, and every single women cash-in was a successful one, including this year's. So that is five cash-in for the women. So that is pretty cool. And also, they don't do it as often as I really want them to, but Money in the Bank can and has been defended in the past. There was one where Rob Van Dam, defending the Money in the Bank briefcase that he won at 22, took on Shelton Benjamin in a winner-takes-all. And then remember Mr. Kennedy, who had Money in the Bank, he got injured, and Edge had to take the Money in the Bank off of him and cash it in on Undertaker that same exact week. So the opportunity here has been defended, and we will most likely see more in the future, but those are just some of the prominent examples of that. Let's go to more of a tournament and date-based thing, and it's not just the G1 Climax, but I'm going to be talking about Best of the Super Juniors, the World Tag League, and the Junior Tag League, because all of them are principally the same thing, different titles on the line. So the original G1 Climax was how New Japan really started back in the late 80s. And Antonio Inoki is he won the first one, because this was when it was shoot. So he won the first one, and he won 10 of them after that. But it wasn't called the G1 Climax at that time. The names actually went through several incarnations and several reasons for it. And it wasn't until the 1990 G1, I'm going to say G1 as an example because it's the same base tournament, the 1990 G1, where a championship or a title opportunity was presented for the tournament. And ever since then, that has been the case. And they decided that the person who got the title match was going to go to Wrestle Kingdom in the later part of the 90s. So at first it was for the championship, and they only defended the title during the tournament. But now they do it at Wrestle Kingdom, which was the big show that they started doing in the 90s. Hulk Hogan won this, Antonio Inoki has won this, Kenny Omega is the only non-Japanese wrestler to win the G1, but, and there's a big but, Andre the Giant has won this tournament, but it was called the World League at the time. Would you consider that being the G1? I kind of do. and this tournament is still going on today. They're just about to start it back up, and I'm excited for it. I think they're introducing more international guys, and that's always fun. And let's talk about briefly the best of the Super Juniors, because this one doesn't have as long of a history because it started in 1994, but Hiromu Takahashi he has the most wins of the tournament, and he has 3 consecutive, which is more consecutive wins than anybody else, and Jushin Thunder Liger was the first one to win, and in non-kayfabe, he was the one who introduced the best of the Super Juniors tournament to New Japan, and they decided to go with it. And with World Tag League and the Junior Tag League, very similar in time, because the best of the Super Juniors does not get the title opportunity at Wrestle Kingdom. They get the title opportunity at Dominion because of when it starts, like in March, where obviously the G1 starting here in July and August will get the opportunity at Wrestle Kingdom, because Wrestle Kingdom is in January. They usually end it around November. So kind of an interesting little history snippet there. Let's talk about titles, because there have been a couple of different championships that have had the cash it in and get the title opportunity.
And of course, this is barring anything like the option C, for example. Like, these are titles specifically meant to be cashed in.
Or there's consistency with the promotion of the gimmick. So Gift of the Gods is a great example of this, because albeit a very brief history, it was meant to be cashed in, and then they get the title opportunity. What I really liked about Gift of the Gods is that the qualifying matches for the medallions from these tribes, because it was all revolved around Aztec lore. And what I really liked about this is that it made it feel special when you got the medallion, you stuck it in the title, and then you wrestle in a 7-way match to get the Gift of the Gods. Now, this title is like any other championship. It could be defended, it can be stripped, and we've seen both of those in the past. Out of 6 cash-ins, 5 were successful. The only one who was not successful was Brian Cage on winning the Lucha Underground champion. That was the obvious prize there. There were some wrestlers that never actually got to cash in the Gift of the Gods champion because they lost the title before. One of them was King Cuerno, who beat Phoenix, who was the first champion, and then Phoenix beat him back to get that and then cash it in and become successful. And the last champion was Jake Strong, because he cashed it in and won the Lucha Underground champion at Ultima Lucha Quattro back in 2018?
Something like that.
I loved Lucha Underground. I really did. Let's talk about one which is kind of a weird one, because there is a history to the actual cash-in, but they modified it slightly, and that was the NWA World's Television Champion.
And so this is this is not just like, it's not one of those titles where like it's a secondary thing. Like, at a certain point in time, what you're saying is it actually was the reason that the television title existed.
Yes. So what they did back in the day was every 10 defenses, they would actually have the opportunity to go for the world's heavyweight champion.
It's not like option C.
But it was not at a base pay-per-view. It was based on a number of title defenses.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was only an option. You did not have to cash in this championship to get the opportunity.
So it's kind of a unique situation there. It's kind of a hybrid between a couple of different things.
And the television champion, they have now the Lucky 7 rule, which is introduced on January 28th of 2020. Where if the champion defended it 7 consecutive times and won it successfully, they would receive a match for the world's heavyweight champion. The thing is that we have not seen this implementation yet.
But we probably are.
We probably are here with Tyrus because he just had his 6th.
Yeah.
Now, is he going to be stripped of the championship? Is it going to be like a dual champion situation? We don't know. And I think that's what's exciting about this, is that we just have no clue. Now, this championship also had a weird one because the television champion always had a time limit for championship matches. The NWA has even still to this day for title matches in a pay-per-view 10 minutes.
Right.
You had to get if you are the challenger, you have to beat the champion within 10 minutes to get that.
Right.
And they're still doing that today. I like it, and I'm really liking the whole Tyrus thing. I think it's a great way to introduce the prestige of the champion to somebody, albeit controversial, has name brand outside of wrestling with his Fox affiliation. If we're going to be talking about a match or a tournament or something to cash in, let's talk about not only the Royal Rumble, but the original idea for NXT.
Right.
Because remember, it was a game show.
Right.
Where the winner was not only announced as the breakout star, but they got a championship match of their choosing.
Right.
It only lasted like 2 seasons.
Right.
And then after that, they just got a contract for WWE, despite them already being under contract in their developmental system, but kayfabe. So, kind of weird thing there. Obviously, let's talk about the Royal Rumble, where they did not have the championship match at WrestleMania until the 1990 Royal Rumble. The first 2 years was just a big battle royal to really promote the next flavor of the month. So it was more so of a showcase than it was an opportunity. But now they do the opportunity at WrestleMania for the Royal Rumble. I don't think it's necessary to go through the actual thing. The winner of the women's does the same thing. They get to go for a women's champion.
We don't have to go
that
over
they're
the
choosing.
history of it. If you're
It's not
a long-time
necessary.
wrestling fan, you pretty much know the history of it.
Right, but let's talk about NXT because I think NXT is not as well known.
And what type of NXT are we talking about?
This was on Sci-Fi, replaced ECW.
So this was the game.
seasons.
This was the game show version of it.
Yes, that was the original
That's a good
NXT
clarification.
concept. Yes, it was named the exact same thing, all that fun stuff. So Wade Barrett, the first person to win NXT, got the title opportunity at that year's Night of Champions. He was added to the match, and WWE was really pushing Wade Barrett at that time as like a main event crew because the Nexus was white hot at that point.
Right.
I'll be honest, I think he should have still held the WWE
He should have
champion.
won it.
Oh, absolutely. But no, Randy Orton won it. So there you go. Kaval, Season 2's winner, or also known as Low Key, won it and faced Dolph Ziggler for the Intercontinental Champion at the Survivor Series of the year that he won it, but he lost and was released because they were weird. Caitlyn, when she won it, she got a contract. So she never got an opportunity for the Divas Champion. She just got it.
Right.
And that was Season 3. Johnny Curtis, who won Season 4, actually debuted on the main roster in June of that year. I think he won it in February.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And he and Derek Bateman went for the tag team champions against Team Hell No. Obviously, they were not successful, but they did bring that back. In Season 5, they didn't have a winner.
Right.
They just kind of stopped doing it.
Yeah.
So that was kind of there. And one more that I really want to talk about because it's more of a unique situation is CMLL's tournament-based. So what you see here is the Universal Champion of that
Or
promotion.
Campeonato Universal.
Yes, same. It's the same thing.
Right.
So what happens with this is that the winner of this gets to face the CMLL World Heavyweight Champion later down the line. It never really gives a specification.
So it's a title that you get for winning a tournament that then allows you to go for the world title or whichever title is relevant to that tournament.
Right.
For that title.
Right. But I mean, and I really wanted to illustrate this with CMLL because they have a bunch of different tournaments.
Right.
They have it for the women. They have it for Legends, the International Grand Prix, which is kind of the same thing, except it is only for outside wrestlers to come in and being introduced. So like the Universal and the Women's are only for Mexican professional wrestlers.
Right.
But then you have the Blue Legend, which is really more of a showcase of the top promotions, wrestlers, than really anything else. You have the Silver Legend, which is more of the mid-carder, but you get a championship match at some point in time. The King of the Air, which is, again, the same thing. You kind of get it. And before you get into it, well, what about AAA? AAA has tournaments, but the tournaments are not really necessarily for titles.
They're not for.
or
They're not like
opportunities.
things that you can like cash in for.
No, there is no cash in. What that does is really introduce the audience to who they're going to be promoting into the next generation. So Rey de Reyes, the King of Kings tournament, which was won by Elio del Vikingo the last year, not obviously this year, but 2021 is now the mega champion. And then you have Psycho Clown, who won it, who will most likely be facing Vikingo or whoever is champion at the end of Triple Mania for the title. Right. Because that's how they do that.
But again, so it's really interesting because I wonder what the Owen Hart championships, the tournament.
I think
those champion are they going to be cash-ins or
I think they're more just gaudy, they're just window dressing.
Right.
It's more to promote the Owen Hart Foundation than anything. So
I guess we'll see if that results in anything. Anyways, is that all you got?
Yeah, that's really all I got. So they're just some fun little cash-in stuff. When we come back, we're talking about Money in the Bank.
Nice.